Welcome. You are now linked to your telecom retirement.
Hey, how we doing today? My strange week this week is my son. My older two girls are moved out on their own. My son is at a week-long marine biology camp, and we are by ourselves for the first time in 27 years. Not by ourselves like on a little mini vacation in our house doing the normal things. It is just bizarre. We had BLTs last night. I feel like my parents. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm turning into my dad. Let's just have BLTs tonight. No, let's have a big meal like I always have. But yeah, wacky week. So just a lot of stuff going on. But I want to talk today about the habits of secret millionaires. And there was a book written, gosh, this is going to be 30 years ago. The Millionaire Next Door. This guy, Thomas Stanley, he wrote a bunch of books. It was The Millionaire Next Door. Then there was The Millionaire Something Else. Then it was Selling to the Affluent. Then it was Marketing to the Affluent. Then it was Bilking the Affluent out of their millions or something like that. He wrote a bunch of books. They were all kind of the same. They were the same concept of just dealing with what millionaires looked like. And I've bumped into a few lately that kind of jogged all of that in my mind. Is just to talk about some things that millionaires do. And I say secret millionaires because as Stanley figured out 30 something years ago, most millionaires, you don't know who they are. You just don't. They're secret. They don't rush out and tell you that they're millionaires. And let's define millionaire, because millionaire 30 years ago was really $1 million. That was a big deal. It's probably $5 to $10 million, which is real money. Maybe 3 to 5. If I do just a inflationary calculation, I did a quick one this morning. It's probably 3.5. But 5 is probably the threshold. But what do those people do differently? And it's funny. Right about when this book came out, or when I found out about it, I read this book, Millionaire Next Door, and shortly thereafter, when I was in college, I was working at a trust company in Boston, and one of my good friends there, I talked to regularly afterwards, and I guess about 6 months to a year after I left, and I left because I wanted to go out on my own. I wanted to own my own thing. They offered me a job. I said, I don't want to work for corporate. I want to build my own thing. I was an entrepreneur at 11 years old. I was going door to door selling chocolate lollipops my mother had made, door to door during holiday seasons at 11 years old. I don't know why, because I love doing that. That's what I do. I like building things. So I said, no, off I went. So I'm talking with this guy, and he hands me this book, and he says, I need this back tomorrow. And it's a thinner book. It was hardcover. This is going back 32 years. And it was basically the same thing. It was talking about millionaires, what they look like, what truly wealthy people do, how they act, things of that nature. And I said, yeah, I kind of read this other book. And he looked at me a little offended, like, how dare I? He said, Dennis, this is a company that came in, this consulting company, and we had to pay $1,000 a copy for this book. I think it was $1,000. It was an atrocious amount of money. And I went, you paid what? He said, it's $1,000 a copy. And they ordered 60 copies. Wow. Okay. You could have gone to Barnes and Noble and bought this other book. I didn't want to say that because I had already offended him and I felt bad. But basically the same thing is, and what it came down to was that secret millionaires are really secret because you don't know. Is we think of millionaires, we think of Floyd Mayweather Jr. lighting cigars with $100 bills or something like that. Most millionaires don't act that way. It's when you drive through a tough part of town, regardless of the town, drive through the tough part of town. Look at the cars. Cars are nice. You get nice cars, and you think, why do they have a nice car? How do they afford that car? I watched this YouTube channel I don't know why we call them channels. We're not changing the dial or anything like that. We call them channels. And it's this tow truck driver uh, in Atlanta. And he's just a funny guy. He's got to have like 300,000 followers on YouTube, which is shocking. I don't really understand it. I wonder if there's somebody behind him, but he's pretty adept in terms of setting up cameras. It's not like he's got a cameraman with him. It's just him. He runs a chest cam, and then he's at least one GoPro that he's positioning. He's doing a really good job of that. But he's just a tow truck driver. And a lot of times he goes to apartment buildings and pulls out expired tags because apparently Atlanta PD does not like that. And they'll give the apartment complexes harassment because of that. They'll hassle them. Those are always funny. People come racing out, yelling at him. But a lot of times he's doing police tows. They get a call from PD, got to come down and get this car. And the number one reason they're grabbing these cars on the highway, side streets, whatever. And these are brand new Mercedes and BMWs. For number one reason, no insurance. How do you afford an $80,000 car and then not insure it? Oh, you don't have any money for that because you spent $80,000 on the car to look successful. That was the real reason, was I have to have something that makes me look successful, and this is going to be what it is, and I can show people that I'm successful. Secret millionaires don't do that. I know that, I don't know if it's the fact now, but I remember 20 or 25 years ago, Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, drives the same pickup truck he drove in like the 70s. He doesn't drive very far. He lives in, down the street from the corporate offices. It's not like he's going far. It was a handy truck when he needed to get stuff around. Could he afford to have, a chauffeured McLaren bring him to work and back every day? Absolutely. Could he afford to have a private chef that cooks all these meals and a private food feeder that could actually feed it to him? Yes, he could. Does he do any of those? No. Why? He's a secret millionaire. If you look at Warren Buffett and you go, I would pass him on the street. If you didn't know who he was, you would just walk right past him on the street. He's a secret millionaire. They don't exude a lot of what's going on. And that was a lot of what Stanley was talking about, is if you're trying to look wealthy, odds are you're not wealthy. And I did these series of seminars at the time. Now, actually, they were for the telephone pioneers. That's how far back it goes. They're no longer the telephone pioneers. They're just the pioneers. But in Providence, I think we ran these seminars, and it was a series of seminars on financial topics across, I think, Thursday nights. And we booked one of the hotels in Providence, so it was handy parking and things like that. And people from the area came, and there was this couple in their early to mid 50s at the time, Art and Peg. Art and Peg came in, and Art had a real Barracuda jacket. I forget the company that makes the real Barracuda jackets, but everybody had one in the 70s and early 80s until the members only jackets came out, and then everybody wore those, and then they stopped. But the real Steve McQueen, Paul Newman Barracuda jacket is what he wore. Not like he was trying to be impressive. It was just a good windbreaker. In tan, slacks. Wife always looked great. Hair looked fantastic. And for 4 weeks, I said, man, those are the ones that have money. I'm young. I'm 22, 23. Those are the ones that have money of all of these people. They have the money. And we get to the end of the 4 sessions, and they want to get together with us. And I go out to their house in wherever it was, someplace in Rhode Island. And it's a beautiful house, very well decorated. And they have 2 nice cars in the driveway. Man, these people are going to have, oh my gosh, this is going to be a big case for us. It's going to be exciting. I think it's great. These people have money. We sit down. They had no money. All of the money went to the nice cars and the nice house and the Barracuda jacket and the hair and everything. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they were never going to have secret millions because they were living in that moment to have that look. And that's what they liked. And there was nothing wrong with it. They weren't destitute. They weren't in debt. So I can't fault them there, but they were not who I thought they were, is looking at someone, you can't tell if they're a millionaire or not. It's too difficult. You don't know. You have to really, really examine. I had a gentleman in just recently, single guy. I think he's been married and divorced, no kids, and he's doing phenomenally well. And his biggest concern in life is his niece, and he wants to make sure that he takes care of his niece. And he saves like a banshee, more than he needs to. He could probably retire sooner than he thinks. And we were just talking about it, and talking about it's very important that he makes sure that his niece is taken care of, and he does this for his niece and that for his niece and this and that. And then he lets slip that, I forget if his brother-in-law, I think his brother-in-law passed away. His sister's a widow, and he feels kind of obligated to help take care of her. But the sister buys a BMW and does this and does that. That's a brother-sister difference of the secret millionaire. Nobody knows this guy has all this money because he lives a controlled life. And the sister just does whatever she wants. And he somehow feels obligated, and I can understand that obligation, to take care of the niece because you're kind of stuck. You're worried that she won't be cared for properly. But yeah, that's really that difference. So let's talk about a couple of things that the secret millionaires do, some habits they have that I find fascinating. And I'm not saying you have to copy all of these, just something you should know. First thing is they're frugal. And I don't mean they're cheap. Definitely not. Again, go back to Warren Buffett and that truck. Is he cheap? Truck works. There's nothing wrong. He bought a really, really good truck. He maintains it really well, spends money on maintaining it. That doesn't make him cheap just because he doesn't buy a truck every 3 or 5 or 7 years. Buys a truck every 20, 25 years. There's nothing wrong with that. I had a marketing professor in college, and this stuck with me from 35 years ago, that said, and he was an executive at a marketing firm before he became a professor. Probably not that high level. Is even back then, you didn't find a lot of, you'll get some real gems in higher education, and the rest of them are kind of, it's that Bill Cosby, those who can't do teach. There's a lot of that going on. And I definitely felt that more so today than back then, but even back then. So I don't know how good of an executive he was, but he said something that really stuck with me, because he said it like 5 times in one semester. He was talking about how wealthy people, successful people choose things versus how less successful, less wealthy people do it. And he said, let me give you an example. Let's say you have a washing machine, and you have 2 washing machines, same capacity, same options, same price, but one of them has a single dial. That's it. There's one dial that runs everything. And the other one has 680 buttons to do the same thing. There's no difference in the amount of things it does. He said every single time. He said every single time, without a doubt, the secret millionaire is going to pick the single knob. Single knob, twist it, pull it, go, and it's done. And I love those. I mean, to this day, our washing machine doesn't do that. There's extra buttons on it. I wish it was just a single knob again. And he said people that think that that's important and that's cool and that's what you want are going to take the buttons. He said the reality is the button machine is going to break more often than the dial machine. The simple machine is going to last longer, and that's why they gravitate. They don't gravitate because they want it simpler for simpler's sake. They realize that there's a sense of, I want to own this longer, so let's find the thing that's going to do the best. Is my dad a secret millionaire? He's cheap. I'm cheap too, so I get that. But it might have been 1990 before he bought his first car with power windows. 1990. He's rolling up windows, mostly because he watched my Uncle Arthur in the 70s when things were vacuum operated. Remember when windows were vacuum operated? They weren't electric. And he would buy a car every 2 or 3 years, and invariably he'd get every single solitary uh, bell and whistle on that car possible. Always Cadillacs, now Mercedes, I think. My Uncle Arthur, love him. And yeah, I had the car in the shop last week. The window doesn't go down. And my dad would be like, you just crank it. Crank works. Crank always works. And that's the kind of mentality is buying quality, paying for it once. Is you think of expensive clothing brands. And it's hard to find them now. There's so much with the internet. But you go back 20 or 30 years and you look at suits, and your secret millionaires are not getting custom suits. They're just not. They're not getting custom suits. They're going to Brooks Brothers. Why are they going to Brooks Brothers? Because it's quality. They're going to pay a little bit more, and that suit's going to last them 10, 15, 20 years. That shirt's going to last them 3, 4, 5 years. That dress shirt. That was what they did. And places like in our area, Jordan Marsh, Filene's, which are both gone, Macy's, which was never here, and now it owns both Jordans and Filene's. Those type of stores, the price of their goods was consistently high. I have a pair of winter gloves, simple leather winter gloves that I bought in 1985, maybe 86. Must be 86 because I was driving at the time. And they're like a dress leather glove, but those ones that with the wide opening, they're not very tight, but they're winter leather gloves. They're cashmere and wool inside, black leather. Still got them. Still got those gloves. I had some stitching issues that my wife fixed up really easy between the fingers. They're very warm. They work great for driving. I love those gloves, and they're almost 40 years old. That's buying quality. So being frugal, but not being cheap is something that secret millionaires do, is they make smart choices with their purchases. They don't just buy because of the flash. They buy because it's quality and it's going to last. Second thing is, it is rare for me to see, and these are things that I've observed. It's rare for me to see a secret millionaire that's not organized. They're not like surprised that they're a secret millionaire. They know exactly where everything is. And it's not just financial. They have a good handle on their finances. They have a good handle on their spending. They have a good handle on the household. They have a good handle on all of that. Is that organization is important to them. Monitoring their investments on a regular basis. That doesn't mean watching it constantly. It means on a regular basis, quarterly, annually, at the very least, taking a look, especially within, say, the 401k, is looking at that and saying, how are things doing? Are there any changes that need to be made? What's going on there? Does it seem reasonable with what I've done with my investments versus what the economy has done, what the market has done, what other investments have done? Does that seem reasonable? If you do it a few times, it's only a 15 to 30 minute exercise. It's not very long. It's kind of like cleaning out the gutters. Of course, cleaning out the gutters probably takes longer. But I will say, most people looking at your finances once a quarter is analogous to cleaning out the gutters. It's a job you just don't want to do. And there are some jobs you just have to do. I cook. I cook a lot. And I guess I always loved cooking, but there was that division of duties when my wife got pregnant with our first child, and we had 3. 3's a lot in these days. I don't know how people did it with 4, 5, 6, 10 kids. I'm just amazed at that. But when my girls were young, it got to a point where I started cooking because it was just too much. And I go to work all day, I come home, and then I cook probably 4 or 5 nights out of the week, definitely on the weekends, and then probably 2 nights during the week. I would just take over the cooking duties. I didn't like it at first. It was like, I got home and I looked at my wife, and she's trying to take care of these 2 kids, and the 2 kids are off the wall. And, I love my girls, but they were off the wall. And they were very, very different, but they were a tag team of different. And I just did it. And after a little while, turns out, A, I'm a really good cook, and B, I love doing it. I love doing it. I had a stressful Sunday a couple of weeks ago, and I came home my wife was out bebopping around and she came home and we were having the kids over that night. We were going to make Reuben sandwiches, which they all love. I don't understand. Okay, I'll make Reuben sandwiches. I bought this new griddle, electric griddle, so I was kind of happy to do that. I made from scratch tomato soup, cream of tomato soup. She walked in and she's like, "Are you insane?" I said, "I just needed to relax for an hour." And this was great. I got to think about something mindless. So that's what I enjoy. So same thing with monitoring your investments. A secret millionaire understands that importance. Just like I understood the importance of, I need to take this job off my wife's hands and take care of it for her. And I don't have a choice. I have to get it done. Managing those investments is an important choice. And monitoring those investments is an important choice, and making sure that you're doing it on a regular basis is just important. And again, it's 15 to 30 minutes, if that. If you get your phone or your computer or your Quicken or whatever programmed right, it's actually faster than that. Now, I wouldn't recommend watching it daily or maybe even weekly. I think you can drive yourself crazy. I don't see the secret millionaires, for the most part, doing that. What I see them doing is regularly monitoring and making sure that the path they're on is the path that they're supposed to be on. The third thing they do, they invest for real. They invest for real. And I don't know how to say that otherwise. And I'm not recommending that you invest for real. You're not going to become a millionaire putting your money in the bank. Period. It just doesn't work. That's not how to make millions of dollars. People make millions of dollars two ways. They either invest in other people's companies, whether that's investing directly or through the stock market, or they invest in their own company. Now, I will tell you that I know a lot of millionaires that have a lot of money in the bank. The reason they have a lot of money in the bank is because they own their own company, and that was the company they invested in, and they took the profits from there and put them in the bank. But the gains, the real value, was created through ownership in stocks. Is whether it's, like I said, whether it's the stock market itself, or if it's through companies that you own or invest in directly. And investing directly is probably the hardest because you have no liquidity effectively. You have no control. You really have to trust somebody to do that. I look at I look at Shark Tank, and I think, man, you could have a whole lot of excess money to bother doing that, because you're basically handing these people cash and hoping they listen to you, and they don't have to. We think that, they're under obligation. There's no obligation. They're investing in the company. They get a percentage of it, and that's it. They don't have enough of a stake to really change the company. If they continue running into the ground, they're going to continue running to the ground. If they just blow the money, they just blow the money. And you listen to interviews with those folks, and that's exactly what they tell you, is they're trying to make a judgment call in that pitch meeting of, can I trust this person more than anything? And it turns out they're actually not very good at getting that read. But it's important to invest in stocks in order to get ahead. Historically, the stock market is the best place to gain against inflation. Inflation right now is running about 3%, somewhere around that range, maybe 2.8, maybe 3.1, somewhere there. With our, the government's not real sure. It's a hard statistic to put a finger on, for a myriad of reasons, and we won't get into those today. It's important to make your money grow faster than the inflation rate, and stocks will perform anywhere from, historically, I think it's still 10% or close to 10%. And that's across all stock categories pretty much. Bonds will do 5.5. I'd have to look that number up. I'm not actually, I didn't look these numbers up today. And then your bank accounts, your CDs should only pay a little bit over inflation, if anything. We're in a funky area. I think I talked about this last episode. We're in a bizarre area where CDs are paying anywhere from 1.5% to 2% above inflation, which is unusually high. It's too high, and it's causing issues in the market. And we'll get there, but typically will produce very close to inflation, which is why you can't put your money in the bank and expect to become a millionaire. unless you have a huge cash flow coming in. So investing and figuring out for yourself, what's that percentage look like? Should it be 100%? I've definitely seen people with 100%. I don't know if that's the best. I've definitely seen people with 50%. I don't know if that's the best. It's important for you to figure that out for yourself, is understanding that, which gets me to the last thing that I will tell you. My gosh, almost exclusively, I have seen a couple of exceptions. Sometimes they just blink. Sometimes they lose their nerve. But I will tell you that secret millionaires stay invested. They have an understanding of their time horizon that regular people, the rest of us, don't necessarily have. Let me give you an example. Is you have $1 million in the stock market right now. Let's just assume that. And you're worried about where the market's going in the next 3 to 6 months. You've got an election coming up. Interest rates are very high. There's a lot of turmoil. What do you do? And people are considering, man, maybe I should cut back or sell everything, or I'm thinking about that. I'll tell you how a secret millionaire looks at it. Do I believe the economy is going to be stronger 5 years and 10 years from now than it is today? Yes. More than likely, they'll say yes. Assuming they say yes, they're going to look and say, I don't care what the short term is. It doesn't matter to me. It's not relevant. And I've bumped into this a couple of times in the last couple of weeks of people who have lost their nerve. And I've had that exact conversation with them. I said, hang on, let me ask you, do you think things are going to be better 5 years from now than they are today? And without hesitation, oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. Are you spending this money in the next 2 to 3 years? No, that's my long-term money. Then why would you ever sell in the first place? If you think things are going to go up, we don't know, it's a random thing on a day-to-day basis. We don't know the days that it's going to go up. Why would you ever sell and miss out on the opportunities just to avoid this loss that you know, that you believe, I'll say it that way, you believe you're going to recover from within the next 5 years, which is longer than it's a shorter time horizon than when you need the money. And they look and they go, oh, right. Now what do we do? And that's a deciding factor. But the secret millionaires build that in. Not only are they monitoring their investments, but they're staying invested because they're looking to match their investments to their time horizon when they need the money. So if you had a child going to college in 2 years, please don't invest in the stock market. Pretty please don't invest in the stock market. Stock market could be down 20% in that time span. I don't know. And now all of a sudden you don't have enough money to send your child to college. Don't do that. You're retiring next year and you're 60. I would argue that I'm not as concerned about where the market is in the next 2 years because I have to spend that money over the next 30 years. 30 years. Let's assume that is, especially if you're married, one of you making it to age 90 is actually a pretty good odds. Yeah, I need to make sure that money keeps pace and grows faster than inflation over time. That's very important. So that person, I would look and say, I don't know if we're that concerned in the short term. It stinks in the short term, but if the good years are better than those bad years by a lot, then what difference does it make? We're looking at a 30-year time horizon, and let's just stay where we are. So I hope that kind of helped in terms of giving you that sense of what the secret millionaires think, how the secret millionaires think. And if you think that way, you're probably already a secret millionaire. You may not have added up all the numbers, or you may say, I don't know. Sometimes it's just a mindset. Sometimes it just is a mindset. At some point, I'll tell you my notebook story. I have a notebook story for people that come into my office. It's kind of funny. I don't have time today. I know I'm running long today. But yeah, take a look at your own life. It's going to require a little bit of effort. It's going to require a little bit of thinking, but that's what secret millionaires do. is they're not focused so much on today's toys and having fun. That's important, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also looking at the longer term and making sure we're making good decisions there. That's all for today. Jump in the show notes and reach out if you have questions or issues. Be sure to share this podcast. If you get friends that could use this, whether they're telecom or not, a lot of the information we use is kind of universal. Just jump down and through your podcast app, send them a share, and we're always trying to get more listeners to help as many people as possible. So that's it for today. Thanks a lot. If you need to contact us, jump in the show notes, get a hold of us through LinkedIn or Facebook or our website or any of those, and we'd be happy to help. Stay safe out there.
Thank you for listening to Your Telecom Retirement with your host, Dennis O'Keefe. Please click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available.